Hello, friends and residency applicants. Thanks for joining our discussion today. We're going to talk about developing your residency personal statement. If you haven't gotten started yet, don't delay. This document can take longer than you think to write. If you have already gotten started, that's great. This video will still be helpful because we're going to cover lots of tips and advice for composing the very best personal statement you can. Let's get started. It's important to know that every piece of writing has a purpose. That purpose is largely defined by two different factors. First, your motivation in writing. And here it's twofold. You want to impress your readers, and you also want to convey different details about yourself. The second factor that contributes to your purpose is your target audience. In this case, your audience is program directors. Program directors have a purpose too. It's to learn about you and hundreds, if not thousands, of other applicants. This means that you need to be concise. Every single word counts. One way you can ensure that your writing is concise and easy to read is by avoiding passive phrasing and using active phrasing instead. Here's an example. Instead of saying, I was able to treat patients, say, I treated patients. This eliminates the phrase was able to, which is wordy and doesn't carry any meaning. Another great tip is to stay focused. The theme of each paragraph should be you. You don't want to go on and on about your sister's illness or details of a patient case, especially if it's just one that you observed. You also should not focus on how well you understand the nature of the field. Program directors are already experts in the field. They don't need you to explain it to them. And proving that you understand what the field is, that's not impressive, it's just expected. Finally, avoid cliches and over-dramatic story elements. Examples of cliches are, this is a dream come true, or jack of all trades. A dramatic story element is something that takes away from the focus, which again is you. Before we dive into the components of the personal statement, let's discuss what it is not and what it is. The personal statement is not a 5-paragraph themed essay. These are what you wrote during your undergraduate years. They usually start with an introduction that has a thesis statement with 3 key components. Then that's followed by 3 body paragraphs that highlight each of those 3 components, and everything ends with a conclusion that restates the thesis. Again, a personal statement should not follow this format. A personal statement is also not a creative writing essay. The reason for this is that the focus of your personal statement is going to be you. It's okay to use some creative elements if you're sharing a story or want to include dialogue, but from start to finish, you should not be looking to tell an exciting or dramatic narrative. The personal statement is also not a personal narrative or reflection. You should do a lot more than reflect on your thoughts and ideas and how you feel about the specialty. You should be sharing your strengths, your experiences, and how those are relevant to the specialty and why they will make you a really great residency candidate for the particular programs that you're applying to. Now let's take a look at what personal statements are. Personal statements are professional documents. I like to think of them as a cover letter for the entire application. As such, you should use sophisticated and professional language. Personal statements are essentially extensions of your CV. Your CV is short and to the point. Your personal statement is a place where you can elaborate on the most impressive aspects of your CV. Of course, personal statements also need to be concise yet sophisticated. Now let's break down the individual components of the personal statement. We'll start with the introduction. Many online sources will give you the same advice for how to create an engaging intro. They might suggest that you open with a shocking statistic or a famous quote. These are actually don'ts. Here's why. If you open with a famous quote, you might trigger plagiarism detection software, and you obviously don't want to do that. Opening with a statistic is problematic because the purpose of your entire personal statement is you. This means that your opening sentence is very important and needs to be focused on you. If you open up with a statistic, you can't do that. So what are the do's? Do's start with a short sentence. This is very important. Readers will feel overwhelmed if they go into the personal statement having to read a long and complex sentence. By short sentence, this could be anywhere from 1 to 15 words. You should also clearly state the specialty that you are applying to in your introductory paragraph. The most important part of your introduction is to ensure that you share something personal about yourself. This is that engaging element that draws your readers in. Again, the purpose of your personal statement is to convey information about you to program directors. That's why it's so important to use the introductory paragraph to do so. Let's move on to the body paragraphs. Each body paragraph within your personal statement should stay focused on one key element or idea. This is because including more than one key idea per paragraph can be overwhelming for readers. It can leave them feeling confused or lost, or even worse, they might forget the purpose of the paragraph by the time they've gotten to the end. You should start each paragraph with a sentence that indicates what the paragraph will focus on, and you should end each paragraph with a similar sentence to reiterate the main point. This brings us to our second point, which is to focus on transitional sentences. These are the sentences that start and end each paragraph. As an example of how they should transition, you can think about using the last sentence of the second paragraph in connection with the first sentence of the third paragraph. There should be some element within these two sentences that mirrors each other or complements one another so that it is easy for your reader to move from one section to the next. Last but not least, it's important to consider the overall organizational approach that you will use. Many people choose to use a chronological approach, starting from why they chose medicine, their experiences in medical school, then their rotations, and then finally coming into a conclusion. This can work really well, but it's not the only approach. You may want to start with something that's happened a little bit more recently and then rewind back to medical school. Just keep in mind that the best approach for you has to do with the details of your unique and individual story. Don't feel locked in to a specific approach just because that's what others are doing. Let's move on to the conclusion, and we'll start with some don'ts. Your conclusion for your personal statement should not summarize the entire statement. This document simply isn't long enough to warrant that type of content. Your readers have not forgotten what they read just 2, 3, or 4 paragraphs ago, so it's okay to not summarize in your conclusion. You should also not repeat information, and again, that's because this is a short document and readers have not forgotten what they've read. So what should you do in your conclusion? You should come full circle. This means that if you can take an element from your introduction and pull it into the conclusion, it's a really nice way to tie everything together. We sometimes call these bookends. It's also a great idea to include content in your conclusion that highlights why you will stand out as a residency applicant. What are your unique traits? What are you going to bring to the table? And how will you be an asset to your program? Most conclusions also talk at least a little bit about what the applicant is hoping for in their residency program. This means that you should express your interest about research or community outreach or anything else that is specific to what you're really hoping to accomplish during residency. Many applicants also like to include at least a sentence about if they have fellowship goals or where they see themselves down the road after completing residency. To wrap things up, I'll leave you with a couple of writer's tips. First and foremost, you can't think your way out of writer's block. If you feel stuck, that's okay. Writing sometimes feels chaotic and stressful. It's normal even for professional writers. Since you can't think your way out of writer's block, however, know that you can write your way out. Even if you're not sure what to write and you feel like everything you're writing sounds horrible, you should push yourself to continue typing. Just keep getting words on the screen, and eventually you will circle back to something that makes sense and is useful for your personal statement. The second tip is to vary your paragraph and sentence length. This is very important. A lot of people mistakenly assume that uniformity is good when it comes to writing an essay or a personal statement. However, that's not the case. Varied sentence length helps give your paper rhythm and makes it easier to read, and varied paragraph length makes it appear more attractive on the page. Finally, keep in mind that it is not required that you write your introduction first. Many writers feel that they have to get the introduction out of the way before they can start and begin the rest of the personal statement. That is simply not the case. Writing will feel much less stressful and go much more smoothly for you if you allow yourself to start with what feels easiest. So if you have an idea about the patient story that you want to tell, or you know what characteristics about yourself you really want to highlight, maybe you even know what you want to write for the conclusion, go ahead and start there. I always say that it's difficult to write an introduction first anyway, because until you've written the rest of the statement, you don't really know what it is you're introducing. So again, start where it feels easy. I hope these tips have been helpful. If you feel that you need assistance editing and optimizing your personal statement, your ARIS application, your supplemental application, or your letters of recommendation, you can reach out to us at residencyexperts.com. Our professional editors can work with your documents to help them shine. Thanks for watching this video, and we hope you tune in for next time.